an area, math in particular, is not an area I feel very strong in. I began my college career as a math major and lasted about one semester in that before I realized that I wasn't cut out for it. So about all I can explain is a couple of simple games to you. The first game here is the game of chicken. Now, you may remember when you were a teenager, if you were a teenager in the 50s, this was a very popular game. And what you did was that two teenagers driving old cars, preferably a 1949 Plymouth, because they were expendable, and maybe a Ford, because they were cheap. Preferably these cars were stolen too. You've been there, you know. You get these two stolen cars and you go out at midnight on some deserted street, and you get at one end of the street and your opponent gets at the other end of the street, and you floorboard the things and you come at each other as fast as you can, and the first one who turns is a chicken. That's the way we played in my neighborhood, and I assume that's the way you played in yours. But you may remember the movie Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean. I thought James Dean got a bad rap in that movie. You remember that James Dean was the new kid in town, and immediately Natalie Wood liked him. It's a good reason to be a new kid in town, I guess. And Sal Mineo, who was a little bit weird, also liked him. But the gang that was already set up didn't like James Dean coming in because he was a little too cool for them. And they had their own leader, Buzz, or somebody like that. And Buzz was not happy that James Dean was beginning to assert himself as a new player. So he challenged him to a game of chicken, and at midnight they went out to some deserted place, which could only have been in California because there was a cliff that went right down to the Pacific Ocean. We don't have any Pacific Oceans here in this area, so that's why I'm assuming it was California. They got their cars there. All of their friends got their cars lined up to make a runway with their headlights pointing in. Buzz got in one car, James Dean got in the other. They floorboarded those things, and off they went straight toward that cliff. The first one who bails out is a chicken. Now, we know, because fortunately there was a television camera in the back seat of both stolen automobiles. We know that Buzz was chicken. We know that he reached for the doorknob very quickly after he floorboarded it. But, unfortunately, the strap on Buzz's leather jacket got hung in the door handle. And as he was frantically trying to open the door, James Dean was cool as a cucumber, headed straight for the cliff. Well, Buzz went over the edge. And we also know, because the camera was still operating, that James Dean waited until the front two tires of his car were over the edge, pointed down a 6-mile drop to the Pacific Ocean. And then he bailed out, just barely caught himself on the edge. But James Dean was a chicken, because Buzz rode that sucker all the way to the bottom and won a lot of status in the eyes of his peers. Well, that's the game of chicken, to refresh your memory. We have this video version of the same thing. Let me pause now. Our studio band is back with us today, despite the protests of the anti-rock group who was here with us last week. Let's hear now from the studio band with a rendition from the 50s. Take it away, studio band.
There she is. Let's ask her. Betty, is that Jimmie's ring you're wearing? Gee, it must be very loud. Is he picking you up after school today? By the way, where's Jimmie?
I met him at the campus store. He turned around and smiled at me. You get the picture?
Yes, we see.
That's when I fell for the leader of the pack. show. As he drove away on that rainy night, I begged him to go slow. Whether he heard, I'll never know.
Inspiring. Well, in the game of chicken, each driver has two possible strategies. You can swerve or you can not swerve. And a rational player, assuming any rational player plays the game of chicken to begin with, a rational player has decided before he even starts the game how far he's going to go before he swerves. So there are at least four possible payoffs, and again you have your payoff matrix in your packet. There are four possible payoffs in this game of chicken. First of all, drivers A and B both swerve. Here's B and A. A and B both swerve, in which case both are chicken, but neither lose face. You don't gain anything, you don't lose anything, so the payoff is 0. Another option is A1, B2. In this case, A swerves and B does not swerve. Therefore, A is chicken and loses face. B gains status in the eyes of his peers. And then the third alternative is that B swerves and A does not, in which case B loses face, A gains status. And then the fourth possibility is that neither one swerves. The payoff is this one, head-on crash, in which case both die, but neither loses face. So those are the four possible payoffs in this game of chicken. One thing that the matrix shows is that neither player has complete control over the outcome. A player's strategy can prevent certain things from happening. It can prevent death, for example. But your strategy cannot determine the exact outcome, because the exact outcome depends upon the interaction of the two strategies, what you do and what your opponent does. Again, each player has a strategy before starting. Each player decides in advance whether he's going to swerve or not swerve and at what point that's going to happen. Each player knows how much he's going to risk to play this game. But the problem is that knowing that still does not give us the ability to predict, will he swerve or will he go on for a head-on crash? So knowing that there are four possible payoffs tells us something, but it doesn't give us that ability to predict behavior. The answer here was provided, or at least suggested, by a couple of economists back in the World War II era. John von Neumann, J-O-H-N, John, von, V-O-N, Neumann, N-E-U-M-A-N-N, and Oscar Morgenstern, and A-N-D, Oscar, O-S-K-A-R, Morgenstern, M-O-R-G-E-N-S-T-E-R-N. They wrote a book in 1944 entitled The Theory of Games and Economic Behavior. And in this book, they advanced an idea called the Minimax strategy, M-I-N-I-M-A-X.